Ladies and gentlemen, on the Northern Beaches, there's 550 sales agents. There is one agent that is talking to more buyers in the marketplace than any other real estate agency on the Northern Beaches. We're going to tell you some of his secrets.
Good evening, Mr. Novak.
How are you?
Wow, what an intro that was. Thank you.
Did you like that intro? That was really cutting edge.
That was amazing.
Wow.
And that wasn't scripted either.
No.
That was just off the cuff.
Yeah, I felt like
done.
I was on 60 Minutes or something, Tara Brown.
Well done.
So tonight's an exciting one because a little bit that we do is we take for granted, I guess, how much transaction that some of the wonderful sales people in the office do. So I wanted to steal one of the agents and I wanted to specialize in a particular area. And I thought, who best to talk about buyers than the guy that's doing the most amount of buyer transaction in the marketplace of the whole of the Northern Beaches. So if you don't know, the Northern Beaches has 550 agents. And if you go on realestate.com.au and you look at all the number one sales in the area, you'll see Lisa, Michael appear. And the way your team works, just to make it nice and clear for everyone out there, is Michael will deal with the prospective purchasers, Lisa deals with the sellers, and that's the team that goes out and does an enormous amount of sales in the area.
The EBU we run.
It's called an economic business unit, and most, I guess, good volume agents are running that way in the marketplace. But that qualifies you. That qualifies you to give good advice on this topic. Mate, what are the and happy? It's a live show, guys and girls. So if you want to ask any questions, whack them in. We can see them appear. We'll talk about them. But Michael, tell me, with people out there, it's been a tumultuous and amazing property market in the last 12 weeks, 16 weeks.
It's been very interesting.
Crazy.
Yes.
What? First of all, what have you seen? Before I get some advice out of you, what have you seen in the market the last 16 to 20 weeks?
It has
12, 16.
Yeah, it's very interesting how quickly the market adapts and how, obviously, myself dealing with on the buyer side a lot, how quickly everyone has adapted to the new market conditions. So where, I guess, COVID hit last year, the market quietened down, and then since really the beginning of this year, how quickly it's taken off again. A lot of buyers I've found have started to actually educate themselves a lot more as well, where terms like 66W, unconditional cool off, these sorts of terms to a lot of people when you're not transacting property might seem a bit foreign. I'm finding more and more people now in a hot market have learnt their way around the process. And that way, when they find a property they like, they can move quicker and strike on it. So people have educated themselves a lot more, I've noticed.
People a bit upset about having their hearts broken.
I think so. And so instead of, for a lot of the purchases that we're seeing that are successful in buying property, instead of letting it get on top of them, they've educated themselves. They've been speaking with a lot of agents. They've followed their solicitor's advice, their broker's advice, the people in their corner, and they've gone, okay, well, how do I work out what's the best way to secure these properties? What do I need to do?
And that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
Where do the buyers that you're talking about get their education? Who teaches a buyer to buy?
Great question.
Yeah.
A lot of people seem to listen to friends and family, whether how qualified they are or not. So sometimes that advice can be great. Sometimes it would be not as great. So I do find some people sometimes tend to be a bit misinformed. Other people are very switched on with it, know exactly what they're talking about. Obviously talking to real estate agents as well, get it straight from the horse's mouth. Ask the agent, what do you need me to do? I want to buy this property. Talk me through the process, and learning it that way also.
So they ask the agent that has the property for sale, help me.
Yeah, the agent's the middleman between you and the vendor. So if you want to buy a property, work with them, obviously, to try and secure that property, because you want to work alongside them, because they're the ones that are standing between you and the vendor. You work well with that agent, you can lock in that property. So what we find is, and this is on the other side as well, a lot of buyers, I guess, that aren't as well informed, just ask the question. Just ask, okay, look, I do want to buy this property. Can you run me through the process? And any good agent, our job is obviously to transact the property is to put together the buyer and the seller. But we're there to educate people to actually go, okay, well, this is how you do it. And I know I spend a lot of my time on a daily basis. Part of my job is literally talking people from A to Z how to actually buy the property and what they need to go through, the due diligence.
Part of your job.
Correct. Because people don't know. So
it's okay not to know.
it is. A lot of people don't know.
Well, how many times would you do it in your life? You probably may do it, I don't know, 3, 6, once, maybe. Yeah, I'd love to. Actually, that'd be an interesting number to know. But when someone, so in this last period in the marketplace, very volatile. Buyers have to act fast.
Correct. Yeah.
What's Michael's 5 tips to prospective purchasers out there to go, this is what you got to do to get the property? Because I guess it's really important to people. They're emotionally invested.
100%.
They've found a family home.
Yeah.
They've got all their ducks lined up, i.e. finance.
Yep.
Work, family, time is right. I've found my dream home. I'm ready to go. And they're penting up a lot of emotion here. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So I'd say probably the number one piece of advice is do not work off the market, work off your individual timeline. So a lot of people I speak to say, I'm waiting for the market to crash. Like, speak on a buyer's perspective, I'm waiting for the market to crash. It's overinflated, or I'm waiting for this to happen. I'm waiting for that to happen. No one has the crystal ball. No one knows what's actually going to happen next. Number one is work on your own timeline. So as long as, let's say you've got so part of number 2 as well, speak to your broker, see if you can get that finance approval, make sure you pre-approve, make sure you know how much money you can borrow, what you can actually afford to buy.
Yep.
Because you don't know what you might be able to afford to buy in the next sort of 6 to 12 months. Your borrowing capacity might go up, might go down, the new regulations, you just don't know. So find out what you can actually afford to purchase. Get a good solicitor in your corner. A lot of mistakes I see a lot of people work with as well is they sometimes just go with the cheapest solicitor.
Yep.
100% solicitors are worth their weight in gold. The difference between a good solicitor and bad solicitor might be $500 odd, which is a lot of money. But when you're talking potentially hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in a transaction, you don't want to get it wrong. So get a good solicitor in your corner, get a good broker, and then work with your timeline. So
is an agent ever going to tell you that you're the only buyer interested in the property?
Good question.
Because I know, I reckon you can bank as a prospective purchaser that every agent is going to say,
that there's interest in the property. And look, in this market, chances are they're telling the truth that they're saying there is other interest.
Yeah.
Especially now as well in a hot market there. The key for any purchaser is, and look, every agent's different. Some agents are great to deal with, some aren't as great to deal with, is cut through all the BS with it. And if there's a property that you like, so part of when you're looking at a property is obviously there's a contract for sale. Have your solicitor review the contract. If it's a house, there's a building and pest report. If it's a unit, normally there'll be a strata report available. Have those reviewed, do your due diligence. And sometimes you don't even need to take into account directly what the agent is saying in terms of, because a lot of agents, like we say, you like a property, we'll make us an offer, we'll take it to the owner. The great thing is now these days online, there's so much information available for all the comparable sold properties, what's going on out there. A lot of the buyers I talk to are probably better, more knowledgeable than me with all the properties that have sold around the corner and know exactly what's going on. People know roughly what the property's worth. And especially in a market now where it moves quickly.
So much data out there.
There is.
You can see all the solds and
exactly. And you make a fair offer based off that.
House and
you work with it, because if you know that everything else is sold for that, you make an offer accordingly as well. And then at least a good agent will go, okay, great, take that offer. I'll take it to the vendor and I'll get you that feedback from there, and you start that negotiation.
Where would you start that negotiation? So you're a buyer, it's a price guide of $550,000. Where would you put your offer in?
So, and that's another thing in this market as well, obviously, because the markets move so quickly and a lot of properties obviously are selling well above guides. And a lot of buyers I'm talking to are very frustrated with that, especially where sometimes it's genuinely the guide's realistic and that property is sold for a well premium compared to all the recent comparable sales. No one can predict that. That's market growth. And then there's other times where some agents probably more, like a better word, underquoted.
Lowballed it.
They lowball it to get all the buyers in.
Yeah.
And you know when an agent's completely lowballing it as well. So you've seen
shitloads in that price range. You can see it straight away.
The agent's guiding 1.5. You've seen all the similar properties sell for 2. You know, that they're lowballing it there. So
why do the agents do that?
Because they want to bring people in. As naughty as it sounds, they want to bring people in and get them excited about the property. A good agent will find that delicate in between. You don't want to overprice a property. You don't want to lowball it. You want to have it roughly in that sort of. And to give you an idea, as agents, when we appraise a property, we have a 10% range to work with when we appraise it. So let's say,
I'm a buyer and I want to buy something, but I have to sell my property. Should I sell first or should I buy first?
I would say, well, actually, very interesting. A lot of the times, outside of, let's say, take out the past 6 months, normally people would say, I want to sell first because I want to know how much, basically how much I have to buy afterwards, and then go out and buy. I'm not rushed to sell that way. I'm sitting in a good position. Funnily enough, in this market, what I'm hearing from a lot more people is when now, because they're so worried about the market moving up so quickly, and if they sell, they might not be able to get back in. So now what a lot of people are actually doing is they're opting to buy first, maybe with a longer settlement to give themselves time to sell, because they're not as worried that they will sell because everything's moving so quickly. They've got somewhere they know that they're going. And then they sell afterwards. So funnily enough, that actually, it's reversed.
And I reckon there's a little hack in between. Put your property on the market with an agent pre-market while you're buying, because at least you're going to get a bit of price discovery, a bit of an idea, a bit of a reference where your price is. Maybe it's 100,000 more. Maybe it's 100,000 less.
Exactly.
So when you do go to snap your purchase before you've sold, at least you've actually got a bit of a sniff of what the market's doing.
Well, that's what a lot of Lisa and myself do as well, is all that pre-market selling, social media. It's great. It works. And that's why we do it, because a lot of our clients are going for that exact reason. We do want upsize, downsize. We're worried because the market is so volatile. We want to dip our toe in, and maybe we can line up that great buyer. And literally, and we've done it a few times where they go and buy a property the same time we sell their property, and we're taking as much as we can the risk out of it for them.
Other tips
as a buyer. So make sure you got good people in your corner was the first one. Work off your own timelines as well. Be prepared to move quick as well. So part of doing your due diligence first is when you do find that right property, and when you do get, so for example, in this market, you get verbal offer and acceptance. It's great, but it doesn't lock anyone into anything. And a lot of people do get caught short there. They think, the agent called me back. The owner's happy to go ahead with my offer. That's it. It's sold. I'm ready to go. Not the case. So it's with anything until we get exchange of contracts, it's not legally binding. So as a prospective purchaser, and what I do with a lot of my buyers as well, is when we're at that point where it's looking like it's all going to be accepted, we want to always fast track and make sure the due diligence is done correctly, but not leave much of a lag time to get contracts exchanged so people know it's locked in for them.
Have you ever had someone go to buy a property and after they've 100% bought it, they've had buyer remorse and wanted to,
going unconditional?
I
haven't once, actually. I mean, I had one person.
I find that really interesting.
That's actually a really good question. I've never once had someone after going. I've had people during a cool off period for whatever reason get cold feet, understandably so. It's a big decision, and they pull out. That's what the cool off's for. But after going unconditional, because obviously after you go unconditional, you've committed normally a 10% deposit. You're as locked in as can be, really. I've never had one person
really do it, do they?
No,
not even a call or a question. They're like,
no. And I think also people, because obviously if you're getting to that point, you must have been pretty keen on the property in the first place, as you'd hope you'd be, because it's such a large sum of money. But on top of that, once you've made that commitment, chances are, which 99% of people done, you've done the appropriate things leading up to it, so you know you're ready for it. And even if you're not fully ready for it, I don't know what goes on behind closed doors with people, but I'm sure you work your own narrative around it. You go, well, I'm locked in now. There's no point having that regret. Let's make it work.
How do you explain to a buyer what a cooling off is?
So a cooling off period,
why and how, and
what all that is. A cooling off period, and because a lot of people do get confused. Like, what's a cooling off period? What's the difference between buying at auction, going unconditional? There's so many different ways of buying a property. So let's start with cooling off period. It's a private treaty. You get offer and acceptance with an owner. So you go, great, let's get this locked in. What happens is You sign the contract as the buyer, the vendor signs the contract, and you put down a 0.25% deposit. So enough of money that obviously you want to make sure that you're serious about the property.
So if it's $1 million property,
$2,500.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's still a substantial amount of money.
Non-refundable.
Yeah. And the reason why you put that down is because you enter basically a contract with the owner where you're saying, hey, I'm going to buy that property.
Yep.
The nice thing about that is it's exchanged, it's locked in during that stage, which means that the owner can't change their mind.
Okay.
You as the buyer now have 1 week to go through, do the rest of your due diligence.
Owner can't change their mind in those 5 business days. Buyer can change their mind in those 5 business days.
Correct.
That's a cooling off period. A period's 5 days.
Correct. Okay. Effectively, what you're doing is you're paying for the privilege to lock the property in, to do your due diligence during that time. And if you do decide to pull out during that, you lose your 2,500, 0.25%, depending on how much the property is.
Yep.
And the beauty of that system is, as a buyer, especially in a hot market now, you know the property's locked in. You've got time to do your due diligence without worrying about what other buyers might be trying to buy the property as well, because it's all locked in for you. And if you do, for whatever reason, your finance doesn't stack up, the building pest doesn't come back the way you'd hoped, or whatever it is, you can pull out. It does sting losing that money, but it's better than losing a 10% deposit.
It's true. It's true. So buyer remorse, buyer cooling off, buyer tactics, buyer finance approval. Buyer is buying. Do they use a bank or a broker?
We see both.
Yeah.
I can only speak of personal experience and what I've heard from other people. It seems to be broker tends to be the way to go.
Yep.
And the reason why is they're shopping around for you. So I'm a real estate agent. I know how to sell real estate. But if you ask me which bank's the best for finance, I'd have no clue.
Don't know.
It's not my domain. And for a lot of people, they will know as well. And you walk into a branch at a bank and they'll probably go, yeah, we got the best deal for you. But is it the best deal for you? You don't know. I find when you've got a good broker that comes recommended, normally a lot of people know friends or family that have purchased and they've probably gone through a broker and they've had that positive experience. Go to someone like that comes recommended, and they're there to shop around for you. Giving brokers a bit of a plug.
Who's your favorite buyer?
Who's my favorite buyer?
Who's the buyer that you think of the best and brings a smile to your face?
There's no one specific buyer that
soft spot.
It's the type of buyer that's a soft spot, and I've had a few transactions with these sorts of people. It's the family that has been, let's say, coming from a unit, or it's their first purchase, moving into the family home, like let's say the wife's pregnant or they've got 1 or 2 kids, and they're just so excited because it's not a money thing for them.
And they show the excitement.
Because you got the investor, he's got his poker face on. He doesn't really, there's no emotion behind it. It's purely figures and numbers, and you're like, this is, there's not as much emotion behind it there, which is understandably so.
Yeah.
And but when there's a family purchasing a home and they know once they've locked in the home, so maybe they can drop their poker face a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And they're just so excited that they're going to be moving into this space. It's not the money, it's more the lifestyle that them and their family can have.
It's wearing their heart in their sleeve.
Yeah, they're wearing their heart in their sleeve. And it's real, and that's why we do the job. Because obviously we get paid like any industry where we're professionals to do it. But the nicest thing about it is we're dealing with people. We're dealing with clients that are families, mums and dads that, they're buying a home for them to live in. It's going to be the biggest part of their life for the next 30 years whilst they're living there. So
it's okay to act like that as a buyer.
100%.
It's not, you're not going to take advantage of them.
Well, some agents are better than others. Wear your poker face if that's what you feel comfortable with whilst during the negotiations. But once it's locked in, and also you build.
I think it's you are who you are. You do what you do.
You do what you feel comfortable with.
You feel comfy. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you'll see.
But it works. You're saying it works. You like it as an agent to,
100%. We're
help.
We're people too.
Yeah.
Normally people think big bad scary agent, but we're people too, and it brings me joy when I see someone that's genuinely excited about a property. It's an exciting thing. And it's lovely when, like, we just sold one, Ada Parra Street, Forestville, at auction a week and a half ago now. And that one there, obviously the vendors are there at the auction, the purchasers are bidding at auction. So they've secured the property. They were the highest bid at the auction. And then afterwards they met each other actually, and they had a conversation there at the property. And The family had owned that home for about 50 odd years. The father and the son had built the home together. So it was a lot of emotions letting it go.
Wow.
And then this family I was dealing with on the buy side, they'd been looking for months and months and months and hadn't been able to secure property and kept missing out, and then finally secured this one, which was going to be their family home, their stronghold. And so it's lovely to see when there's that type of transaction where the vendor's genuinely over the moon that they've sold the property and they're happy with the price. The purchaser's over the moon because they're happy, obviously, with the price. They're willing to pay it for the property, and now they've locked in their family home. That's
so cool.
They're the transactions that are just
so cool.
Absolutely awesome.
So, guys, if you just tuned in, we're talking with Michael, the weaponizer and selling to buyers in the marketplace. Out of 550 agents, Michael would be the most transactional, meeting the most amount of buyers on the Northern Beaches. So we thought it would be fit to have him on screen today talking about tips. Now, before we sail away, Michael, if I was a prospective purchaser, because this is a buyer's guide, buyer's tips.
Yep.
Where would I look for property?
So you've got your traditional portals, realestate.com, domain.
Yep.
But I'm sure as many of you know, especially people that follow Novak as well, we sell a lot of our properties what we call pre-market. So before it hits any of those portals as well. So it's great. Obviously, set up your alerts on realestate.com, set up your alerts on domain. They're great.
Maybe even set up an email address that's a property email address that you can just...
Yeah.
You can turf once you finish with.
That's true. Actually, that's a very good idea. Having property ones who get spammed afterwards, all the real estate agents. And then also on top of that, a lot of properties now being transacted via social media. So with a lot of the top agents, especially obviously with the ones that we're selling, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, a lot of our properties go there first. Even the ones that are going to go to realestate.com.
Follow agencies.
And follow individual
agents in your local catchment where you want to buy.
Yep.
On
100%.
Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn. Facebook,
and reach out to the agent as well. So we've got a lot of people in our database. So, like, we have so many different channels we let our buyers know about properties. We call them, we text them, we email them, we put it on our Facebook. Everywhere we can, we try to let buyers know. So call your local agent or send them a text and just say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Can you add me to your database? I get a lot of those messages as well. We add them. We've got our prompts. We know what you're looking for. As soon as the property comes up that's in your price range, we flick that email off to you.
Okay. Question. If I'm as part of the buyer's guide, talk about where we find it. How do I look at the properties? Do I actually call the agent, turn up, meet them at the property? Do I actually go to the open houses? Do I go into the real estate agency? Does that help me? How do I do it?
So obviously agents have their open homes, Wednesdays and Saturdays and Sundays, and sometimes they do a private appointment. Yeah. I would strongly suggest call the agent. If there's a property that you're seriously keen on, do not wait for that open home. Call the agent, find out where it's at. Because I know with myself, with every property's got its own timeline. Some of them, like we had one that we first opened was on Saturday, exchange unconditionally this evening. We let everyone know that came through the open home so everyone had their heads up, but sometimes it can move that quickly. Sometimes it can take weeks. Don't risk missing out on it because you might go, I'll go along to that Saturday open, and then they've sold it after the first Wednesday open because there was a great offer that came through and the owner said,
get in fast.
So call the agent, say, hey, what's the situation? Can I get in earlier? Are you waiting for the open home? Just ask them and they'll tell you. Well, like I know with buyers, I'll say, no, it's actually going to happen pretty quickly. I'll squeeze you in today to give you a fair chance. Or, hey, this one's probably the owner's going to make a decision after this Saturday. Come along this Saturday, and we go from there. So just ask the question. And that way you avoid missing out. And a good agent will tell you where it's at. And that way, you're working the timeline.
Does a buyer need a buyer's agent?
I think buyer's agents definitely have their place. If you're international or interstate and you physically can't get to a property, 100% buyer's agents the way to go there, I'd say, because obviously you need someone that is employed by you that you trust to have a look at the property. Outside of that, I find that people that seem to employ buyer's agents they're very time poor. So if you're a time poor person, you go, my time's better off spent working, doing what I need to do, my life, get someone else to look at it, go do that. Outside of that,
that's well put,
yeah, because a lot of people will be very busy with their careers or their family or this or that. You don't want to waste all your Wednesdays and Saturdays looking at properties, dealing with real estate agents. So for someone like that, it's perfect. Outside of that, if you're someone that's pretty savvy with property and you can afford to invest the time. You can do all the tips that we said there, and you'll be able to see all the properties yourself. You'll be able to navigate it yourself as well. And then just run through that process also. So I think if you're time poor, do it. If not, invest the time, go through all the off-market channels, pre-market channels. Just make sure you're out there. Put yourself in front of the agents.
Out of questions.
That's pretty good. There's a few nuggets, I think, in there that
you're a bit of a ninja tonight.
Thank you.
See that, guys? It's the guy that speaks with all the buyers. Smashes it. Gentle, nice, silky smooth. They're calling BP the quiet achiever.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
But any questions as well, even obviously after the live stream, feel free to reach out and flick us a private message or anything like that as well. More than happy to run you through the process and give some advice.
Michael SILJIC, thank you very much. Buyers, we hope we helped you. And if you have any friends or family that are buying at the moment, send this video to them. It will help them. It's 30 minutes of raw help for raw buyers out there.
Yep, awesome.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
mate. Cheers. See you guys.